Yes, it is.
Welcome, Mr. Garrett. We were just checking in about people's families and holidays and
Mm.
so forth. Just anything you want to share or ask or report?
My family has moved. So I'm the last Manone of the area. And now, I guess it's a good time to say that I'm thinking going forward, I might begin being a little bit more digital than in person. It'd be more difficult for me to make it to the class physically.
Mhm.
Um, with my parents gone, and I actually just recently changed up some job situations. So, but that said, this past Thanksgiving, Lexi was feeling sick kind of the week leading up to it.
Oh no.
So we thought, we probably shouldn't do the running around
That makes sense.
to seeing like her family up in Mass and then her family down here, and a lot of driving that we
Yeah.
always do. And
Yep.
That we got you now.
they're South Carolina.
Okay, well,
Yeah. So our Thanksgiving was me and Lexi, just us two. And then we found out that our neighbors, who are our best friends, a couple our age that live right above us, had a similar thing going on. And we were like, want to have Thanksgiving together? So it was a Friendsgiving and
Well,
just our little
nice,
house.
nice, very nice.
And I really, really enjoyed it.
That's
Actually,
good. It's very nice.
like no hut, no rush. It was nice.
Good,
Yeah.
good, very good.
very cool.
Hmm.
All right.
Hmm.
You want to exit with us?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a few inhalations now. So just did a few exhalations and then we did a few inhalations. But of course, when we're doing the exhalations, each one's paired with an inhalation. But because of how I framed it, our focus was on the exhalation. We did both. And same happened when we did the inhalations. The exhalations were still there. It just wasn't the focus or maybe the point of it or something. We're going to do the same thing again. We'll do a couple inhalations. But often what happens, maybe thinking in terms of the ego, is it's going to be doing inhalations. Get my mind, okay, here comes an inhalation, or what do I say, exhalation first. I'm going to do an exhalation and I'm ready to begin. Let's begin. Let's light this match and get this thing started. So it's the ego or the mind kind of driving the action. So instead, what I want to do is we'll do a few exhalations, which of course are paired with inhalations, but actually just kind of want to watch how natural the exhalation starts without the mind saying when or what, how much power or how fast or anything else. But since the practice is to align the mind with the exhalation, what I want to do is kind of let the body start it and then have the mind help it, not just show up and take over. Have to kind of like, oh, that's what you need, body. That sort of volume or loudness or speed or timing or whatever. Like, how do I, like when you ever go into the kitchen where other people are, like, even if you're a cook, you shouldn't go in and take over. And if you're, the father-in-law, you shouldn't go in and take over. You should sort of read the room and kind of, and then maybe how can I help? How could I help? just get out, you know, grab me a towel, wash this, or maybe deal with these carrots or whatever it might be. That's aligning yourself with what is needed in the kitchen. It's not showing up saying, well, you guys all know I'm the chef here and I'll just, or let me show you how I make potatoes, or no. So we'll do a couple exhalations, and the exhalations begun at the time in the manner the body wants. Then the mind watches that, and then it tries to harmonize with what's already happening. And then the inhalation comes, and then we'll repeat a couple of times. Okay. Just let you find your way back. Okay. I thought it was a timid question, but you were looking at
Totally. I was looking at like what I feel. Yep. I see where you're.
you
Yes.
little.
I was wondering.
We didn't prearrange anything. Anybody want to share anything? My guess is that's harder to do than it sounds like it will be, or maybe to do well. Darcy's been flickering on and off, so I'll kind of
I'm just trying not to be, I'm just trying not to be disruptive as I reach for water or whatever. But I love the metaphor.
Your video was out, so I didn't know if we lost you at all. So I thought.
Well, no, I was just trying to be, because
Oh,
look,
no.
see, my hand goes, I just didn't want to be
No, that's fine.
similar
That's
to
fine.
you
I
anyway.
just thought we missed you, so I was just going to repeat the thing fully. That's all.
No, I heard it. I loved it.
just-
Yeah,
Great.
right. Like always, right? No, I love the metaphor with the uninvited person who arrives as a chef, and I thought that was really good.
Yeah, I had a teacher pull me aside once, and he's like, just so that we're clear, like you're a really big dog when you jump into the pool, and he's like, there's nothing wrong with it, but you might not be aware of it. Like you're cute and enthusiastic, and you're a good boy, all that kind of thing. But like, there's also you're a big cannonball showing up at the thing, and I was like, oh, it's really helpful to hear. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
He's like, you might miss that, like, when you go into the kitchen, that you take over, or
Were you aware?
maybe
of
not
that?
even take over, but bump in and sort of be in the way. It could be that too.
Yeah. Were you aware of that when he told you, or you were like, oh,
well, like
yeah.
it resonated as the truth,
Sure.
but so I guess I was aware of it in a sense, but it wasn't like a priority.
Top of mind, yeah.
So it was just like, oh yeah, that definitely.
That
true,
checks
that's
out.
right, and that's very helpful for me. Like going into, particularly it was like going into other groups was the
Right.
discussion. Like it wasn't, like my own thing. It was like somebody else's event.
Mhm.
Oh, right. So yeah, that was it was very well stated and kindly put, and at the right moment, and then the right, so it was a great little lesson of like 2 sentences.
Yeah, love that.
Okay, so let's and specifically it was about going to where we collected this water, as a matter of fact. That's
Where did you collect that
more
water?
interesting. At my favorite place on earth. So let's try this next meditation. Wow.
You know what I'm going to be thinking
I
about
know.
this whole meditation.
In Mike's tender arms.
He probably doesn't tell anyone.
So we'll be doing the same thing, but with the inhalation. Invite you back here. What was that?
So what's your favorite place in Guildford? Is that the place you're talking about?
No.
China, perhaps?
Cool side of the club.
Yeah, I already gave you a clue.
Uh-huh.
You all missed the clue.
Mike's tender arms. His loving embrace.
Around friends. I mean, just trying to think.
That's a geographical answer.
Oh, okay.
It's I'll give you a hint. It's not Waterbury. So
Yeah, right.
So the first kind of part of this, that sort of having an inhale together, having an exhale together, is, how you come into the kitchen. Not sort of overbearing or even unaware of your overbearing. It's like the dog in the pool. But if you are, let's say, going on a road trip and your friend's coming, and for whatever reason that's your plan, and then let's say at the last moment they say, is it okay if I bring my dog? Well behaved, trained, whatever, isn't any problem. And you're like, all right, fine, bring your dog. So now the dog has come into the equation just like you come into the kitchen. And we were talking about, the ego or the mind coming into the natural urge and flow of the breath. Pretty much trying to support it as opposed to determine it, when it starts, how it starts, what it's going to be like. But if that dog is on the road trip, no matter how well behaved or disciplined the dog is, however much it doesn't bark and it sleeps in the car or whatever, the road trip is going to change because of the dog. Like you have to stop and find a place that, the dog can use the restroom instead of where you might have pulled over for yourself. Or maybe you have to stop more often for the dog to have a drink than you would have, for example, right? Because maybe the dog can't drink in the car, but you can from a bottle. Or once you do stop somewhere, you have to kind of find some kind of a bowl for the dog. And there's a few bottles of soda and water in the car, but there's no bowls. So you have to figure out something from the restaurant that you can make do. Or, if it's a longer road trip, now I have to like think about what kind of hotel can we bring the dog to, or place the dog can have a walk, or whatever. The needs are going to change. Maybe when you get back to the car, the dog was in the mud, so you need to spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes cleaning its paws. And so, when the mind comes into the situation, even if it does it well, comes into the kitchen, it's being there might and is likely to influence what happens, even if it's trying to be supportive. So the next part about this breathing practice is to, let's all have an exhalation. So my mind is going to try and come into the kitchen of the natural exhalation and try and serve it. But it's also going to try not to influence its direction. It's not going to, in other words, the first part of the lesson is not to overtly come in and sort of take over. Oh, you're doing carrots. I know how to do carrots. Or give me that. I know how to cut those, or something like that. But now it's a little more subtle. Like, how does the mind influence the naturalistic breath in a way that's not overt? So like that dog is not particularly troublesome dog that's vomiting in the car or won't stop barking or gets off the leash every time you open the door. It's pretty well behaved, but still I have to account for it. I have to find a hotel that'll let it go. I have to find a bowl for the water. I have to, it still changes things. How can the ego show up, be in the kitchen, and actually be of service, not acting in an administrative capacity? It's one thing to go in with the intention to serve, but if the thing is the ego, it's like when you watch, season 5 of a show, and you're like, oh, we already know you're the villain. Like, no matter what you did, like, we know how this is going to, somehow it's going to become what it really is. And you're going to see it in the last 2 episodes where all along like, where you couldn't resist this urge, and guess what? You are who we've known you to be. So even if the ego comes into the kitchen, like, I'm gonna just try and help, I'm just offering my help, it still is what it is. So can, and just through the duration of a breath, by the way, that asks a lot. Can that breath just be in service, in authoritative relationship to what's happening, but service to what's happening? So we're talking about the entry to the kitchen and then the cooking process of the kitchen. All makes sense? Like my metaphors are all over the kitchen and the dog. That TV show, but okay. So let's share a couple exhalations. If you want to move the screen for your legs or something.
Well, I'm okay.
I don't know if you're feeling constrained.
No, no, I was cranking for some reason. My foot, I don't know why. I just feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, just make the switch. It enters the process of the naturalistic exhalation after it's begun. Endeavors through the entirety of the exhalation to remain in service to the natural breath without influencing it, taking control, to set aside its authoritative, administrative, be in service to what is already. Focus is here. Focus here is simply on the exhalation. Just invite you back. Do
Yeah.
Seems like the cushion's perfect for you. Seems, yeah. Yeah. Oh, glad.
Very comfortable.
Yeah. You okay, Garrett?
Yeah, I just had some insights I want to write down.
Great. How was it like?
It's good, very relaxing.
Was that a little harder for anybody to do? Like, detailed and subtle.
No harder, no. I think it just highlights how much I am thinking otherwise,
Mhm.
Should I breathe in a little more? Should I breathe out a little longer? And then, there's also the sort of breathing in a square, and that's very intentional.
Mhm.
Whereas this is sort of like, oh, let's see what, to use a metaphor, to see
Yeah.
what channel this river carved out.
Yeah.
goes, you know.
Yeah, it's a little more like wave breathing.
Mhm.
That's why.
Yeah, I kind of had in my mind that thought that you shared of just for a single breath, just for a single exhalation.
Right.
So
How
the
how
first,
difficult could it be?
what'd you say?
How difficult could it be? Right.
Exactly, exactly. Ah,
So let's try that again, but with the inhalation. So let's share some inhalations. Let you back whenever you feel like it. Whenever you feel prepared to. Will do.
I feel like inhaling is a little harder.
With this practice, you
Yeah.
do this practice with the inhalation.
Yeah.
I think I'd agree with you. That's why I started with the exhale.
More intentional, something to
Mm.
inhale.
Yeah, like it feels like we're more removed from the natural inhalation. Like I'm more used to controlling it. Maybe, yeah.
I agree with that.
was thinking that might be the experience, so I started with the exhalation, but I don't really know how you feel about it.
Mm.
Are they about the same for you, Mike? Both?
No, I did, what you're saying, I agree with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Darcy?
You know, I started off having a hard time and then really got into it. I was doing just fine. When you said you might want to come back, I mean, I heard you, but and I wasn't even making a decision about coming back or not, but I realized like some time passed before I did.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool.
Yeah. So I had a thought for tonight that I haven't fully fleshed out, but I thought it might be interesting to share, especially if you guys spend some time with it. And this is the word enough. If you're a parent, you use that word to mean stop it. I'm not talking about that use of the word, which stems from the idea enough of that.
Mm.
You know, we're done. That's it. You know, I don't mean it that way. But I was kind of thinking how, you know, where are the examples in the world that enough is reached and then maintained?
It's because there people always want more.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I just read, right? And
Yeah.
you always want more. So where is it?
And it may be that something has enough in of some measure. So if we're going to measure that, they do reach enough and it's maintained, but in other things, yeah, they don't reach enough. And so maybe, you know, if we consider the whole being or the whole system, we might say, well, okay, overall, it doesn't buy into enough. But I suppose in terms of this, that's enough. Like we might say, well, as we grow, we get taller, but then we reach a point where enough. I don't keep getting taller for my whole life, right? So you could say, well, if that's my measure, my body knows when there's enough height and then it's done. But if you look at all of me as a system, like I don't necessarily reflect enough. Like even just in the sense like I don't have a sense of I've had enough living. Like I need to do more of that tomorrow. Right. And it certainly could be like you were suggesting with greed in all its forms, like well, have enough pillows or enough, you know, whatever it
Right,
might
right.
be.
That's what the marketing tells us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And so I kind of started by thinking like where do we see examples of enough, you know, in systems or beings in the world. And you know, we certainly see homeostatic examples of things. We certainly see equilibrium, but you know, where does equilibrium continue ad infinitum? And so if I find some equilibrium in terms of my health, it's just a matter of time before I catch cold or sprain my leg, or I don't sprain your leg, but you know, twist your ankles, you know, fracture something, whatever it might be. And then there's an urge to getting back to health. But what do we see in the world in terms of systems or sentient beings that are recognized enough in a sort of systemic way?
Just thinking of one example. I don't know. Again, it's in a system. Like if you have something that's 50 pounds, you need 50 pounds of pressure is enough to pick it up. Or I can't think of the right term if it's the right term, but you need 50 pounds of force to pick up 50 pounds. That's enough, but again, as far as the system goes, you could use more.
Yeah, so that's like
50.
enough in a mathematical sense.
Okay. Right.
To solve the equation.
Right.
They need the same thing on the other side.
Right.
We call it
Balance.
enough. Right, but that's enough to achieve
It's not what you're going for.
the solution
Okay.
to an equation that I'm imposing on the system.
Right.
Right.
Can you do the same thing with enough food though? Like I have enough food to serve. I don't know if food's an example. Does it, I'm
Sure, so
trying to
you
think
might
about-
have like that, I'll say momentary,
Right.
kind of I'm satiated.
Mm.
But that doesn't persevere.
Right. I'm trying to
You
get the
know,
brain thinking about what's enough.
We've all done that where I'm full, and then literally 7 minutes later,
Get to the point.
Oh, there's five.
oh, you're having crackers.
Yeah.
And it's that,
Yeah.
you know, so I suppose, that might be that kind of, if the pendulum's always moving, we might say, well, on average, it's always in the middle. Okay, fine. Or we even might say, well, at this moment, it's in the middle. Okay, but if we really look at the system,
Mm.
the thing is here and then here and then it's here and then it's here. And, so we might look at something like enough sleep, exercise, or enough food, or enough
Mhm.
time with others, or enough time away from others, or something as
Mhm.
that. And so there might be this kind of momentary, yeah, I'm satiated, but I don't know if that sort of.
That's the direction you're heading.
Well, no, I just don't know if that would be an accurate way to describe the system or the sentient being.
Okay.
It's a description of that moment, but I don't, and maybe that's all we ever get, but it's sort of like a point of exploration.
And thinking in terms of balance of animal populations.
Mm.
There might be enough deer in a population and it's managed by either diseases or
Predators.
predators or lack of enough of the right kind of food.
Resources.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I could think of 2 examples come to mind. One natural and one human thing. Human thing is I was reading the story about, I believe it is the CEO of Patagonia,
Mhm.
who said, I believe he even used the word enough, like, I have enough money. I don't need to do this anymore. And what he decided to do was turn Patagonia into like a nonprofit. Even though he was making so much money, he like turned it over to the consumers.
Shareholders.
Yeah, in a different way. And he willingly stepped away. And that's what he did. He put all of the profits into
Charity.
yeah, like charities to give back to the environment.
Environmental protection.
And people were like, you could have kept making so much money. I have enough money.
Yeah.
And that's so seldom seen in
Sure.
the business world, where there's no such thing as enough. Well, we hit our quota. We did it.
Mm.
Time to go
Yeah.
home.
Make
Yeah.
a quota.
Yeah. Revise the quota for next
Yeah.
year.
Right, exactly right. So I thought that was like super rare
I
to
didn't
me,
hear
and that
that.
was an interesting idea of enough.
I always think about this thing that I've heard from people in, their business environments where, they have a budget for, let's say, their department or something. And right near the end of the year, they've
yeah.
only spent 80% of it.
So they have to
which is pretty
quickly
good,
spend
pretty
the other
frugal.
20. Yeah.
And then the understanding is that when they do the budget for next year, they're going to say, well, you only need $80 instead of 100. I'm just saying dollars because it's
Right.
a percent.
Mm.
You only need 80 because look at what you did. You did a good job this year and you needed 80. So we're going to budget you for 80.
Right.
And next year, you're like, well, I have
I
to
really
really
wish I
try
had.
to keep it at 80.
Exactly right.
And so in that last quarter or last month or whatever it might be,
Frivolous spending.
they just let's buy
Yeah.
9 extra things, put them in the closet, show them that we need the whole budget so that
Yeah.
I have the relative comfort of having the full budget the following year.
Why do we have so many
and it's-
highlighters? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
such an interesting kind of, and I guess sort of a fairly common business experience or or institutional experience.
Mhm.
In my business experience in Colorado, our lab and doing marketing work, that was so common. whether it
Right,
was architectural firm, an engineering firm, or high-tech firm, or cores, there's a budget, and they do not wanna lose a penny, so they spend it frivolously in
right,
November and December. You can sell them
right.
anything.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary.
Want that mural of, you know, it was
Yeah,
That's how school budgets are too. We have a certain amount per teacher
right.
spends each year. And so, we throw things in there like more Chromebooks,
Mhm.
smart screen, more headphones.
Right,
We don't need them,
right.
but there's that money in the budget and you don't know later on if
You don't want to lose the potential
You
for
will.
it.
need it. But
Right.
then it's like, where do we put all these,
So I was kind of wondering, like, is enough a naturally occurring expression in systems or sentient beings?
I feel like it's temporary.
Yeah,
can't
and,
think
and
of
is it sort of a description that we use to look at at an average moment and say, like, on average, you had enough health. If we look back in your life, you were relatively healthy. Obviously, you had the flu and this and that, but generally speaking, and so we'd say you had enough health in your life as an example.
Mhm.
And it's really just me averaging something as a way of describing it, or like the pendulum in that moment, it's enough. Like sort of like
Appreciation.
I'm full, I ate a good dinner, I've had enough. Okay, that's fair, but that's not very lasting. So I'm wondering if even the idea of enough is like a natural thing,
Mm.
right?
I think of very specific things like if you're measuring 1 cup, there is enough. You can fill the cup pretty high with surface tension without it going over. Is that
Mhm.
enough? There's always that one more drop that you can
But
make.
again, that's kind of like that's
That's
the
not
equation, that's enough to equal
Yeah,
the volume that the measuring cup has. So it's enough in that sort of mathematical sense.
right.
What would you say about when a tree falls? I don't know if it falls, if it starts to become sick, instead of taking in more energy, it realizes that it's like slowly dying and it says enough, and instead um distributes its energy through its roots to neighboring trees.
Mhm.
So in a way, that's a natural occurring enough, but that is
If it's
also
true that that's what happens.
sure.
Might it also be true that we see what appears to be what you said, but it's the other trees
taking
taking, and they're successful at taking because
Because
the tree
it's
is weak? I don't, and it could
Good
be a
point.
balance of this. I don't know.
Yeah, good point.
But that sounds like you'd be describing a case of enough where something that's alive says,
I'm good.
I'm not going to keep pushing to be more alive more often,
But
which is not quite the same as suicide
Right.
but it's just like, I'm not going to keep fighting to
Mm.
keep this. And, so you have an example of like an animal who's sick who lays down to die. Like maybe there's some sense of enough, but on the other hand, maybe it got pushed so far to get to that point that it would prefer to act on the greedy scale, but it doesn't have the energy to fuel that urge.
Right.
So the
Not like a
default
conscious
that
decision.
seems like it's choosing enough is really it's failing to fuel the thing it is good at doing,
That
which
makes
is
sense.
pursuing more.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Right.
So I started thinking about this in terms of meditation. And I thought, here I am meditating, and something is going well, like in a nice couple breaths, or my posture's pretty good, or I'm pretty empty of thoughts, or I'm pretty relaxed, or something like that. Now, in none of those examples am I, Gandhi. So none of them met the threshold of idealization. But maybe I could be satisfied with enough. Like, that is some pretty good part. Not the most I've ever had, or not as good as Mike does, and he makes it look so easy, or something like that. But you know what? Like that's enough. Like I got a little little dopamine hit from improved posture, like that's like, oh, or the quiet breath, or whatever the kind of measures are. Could it be improved? Yeah. If I was intellectualizing, like, could that be better? Have I been better? Is Tina always better at that? Yeah, fine. But like, no, that's enough. Right, that would be an example of me um honoring or devoting myself to the idea of enough, not perfection, not better, not more, while still preserving the idea that it could be better, and when I'm ready I can bear down and make an effort to do even better than that, and so forth. And so I was kind of playing with that during my meditation today, like what if I honor the guru of enough when something's achieved? So I don't think that's too, what I just said there, too I want to say profane, but that's not exactly right, but too crazy for me to have said that. But the crazy part is, let's say I have a little bit of disappointment in myself when I practice, or frustration, or jealousy, or anxiety, or tension, whatever. Well, those things are probably serving some need in me. Like, I enjoy being self-critical, or whatever it might be. Are there self-help books about that? Is there more work to be done in that field? Do I still have this trauma to work through? Is there still this scarring? Is it still a facet of my personality, the overly critical thing, or whatever? Sure, there's plenty of work to do. But this thing that we would normally think of as a negative color to our meditation, right? This little bit of tinge of, what if I considered that to be something I need? Maybe it's not something I should need, or it's not anything that anybody in the book says you should need. Right. But what if it's right now, I still need to be this way. This is still who I am. I'm still hurting. I still have this, whatever, self-doubt, or whatever it might be. And what if I have that kind of negative little whatever it is in my meditation, I'm saying negative for lack of a better word, but that little bit of disappointment in myself comes up. And what if I say to that, remember my prologue, not enough, like you say to your kids, but what if I say to that, like, oh, that's enough? Not, hey, stop that, but hey, that thing that I think was bad, I still need that. But I need more.
Right.
Right? I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole. Right. Now I'm disappointed or frustrated or whatever it might be. But she's like, hey, that thing that nobody in the meditation book says is good for you, I still obviously kind of need that. It just showed up, but it's enough.
Right.
And I'm going to continue with my practice. So when the thing that we might readily recognize as acceptable, or the thing that we might readily recognize as unacceptable, when either arises, because there's not enough in the world. I only see it when I average, or when I apply math, like I apply formula, or I see it if I take a momentary slice, right, if you had a video of somebody slipping and falling on the ice and you broke it up into quarter-second increments, it's a bunch of images of somebody standing up. There's no balance there. So what if whatever comes to me in a meditation, my response is enough? And not the parents after the kid.
Right.
Just recognize, like, oh, this is all coming into my balance. I have a balanced response. Anyway, that's what happens in my brain during the day. But it's
That's cool.
Love that.
I like it.
any thoughts or counterpoints or?
I had one thought, but before you started talking about enough in the context of a meditation.
Mhm.
I was thinking before you got there, that I think the focus is supposed to be enough in the context of meditation, where what I'm about to say doesn't really apply. I was going to say enough can be based on someone's viewpoint. Like 8 hours a day is enough for
Mhm.
a person. Well, in a different country, it might be no,
Sure.
10 hours is enough.
Right,
So it could be a different viewpoint, but it doesn't really apply, I don't think.
so that enough is the same as the stuff in the measuring cup.
Right.
It's just like in this measuring cup in this society,
Right.
enough is 10 hours a day or whatever.
Right.
So it's still just solving an equation,
Right.
which isn't really the experience.
Right, it's not.
culture. It's an imposed
Cultural. Yeah.
lens through which to see it, a mathematic or equation,
Right. Right.
which is fine. It serves a role.
Right.
And it's like if you're baking, you want to know it's enough salt.
Right.
You really don't want to mix that up. Right.
Yeah.
But
It doesn't really apply in the context.
yeah, but it's all worth kind of
Yes.
thinking and talking
Thought I
about
came
too.
up with it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think there's a whole bunch more writing and thinking to do about it, but I wanted to share
Yeah, absolutely.
that little bit anyway. Anybody else? Questions or thoughts?
I like that. I'll be considering it.
Same.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you.
Nice to see you, Darcy.
Are you back next week, Darcy, or a couple more weeks, or is it next year? I don't know.
I
Just
think I'll be
curious.
back next Wednesday.
Oh, good.
But I may be back sooner, but I'll see you guys next Wednesday, I hope.
Okay, sounds good.
But also, who can say?
I understand.
Good.
Good virtually seeing you.
All right. Nice to see you guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Night, Darcy.